Well, hello there everyone. Bosses are a key part of video games, usually acting as a trial for the player to overcome and having some sort of connection to the story. But there will often be those bosses that can be considered filler or throwaway bosses, the kind that, if cut from the game, wouldn't affect the game at all. Usually, these end up being just okay filler bosses, but on occasion you'll find yourself something way better than it has any right to be. And in this case, I'm going to be counting down what I think are the top 11 best throwaway bosses in gaming. Why top 11? Because I want to make sure this video gets as little traction with the algorithm as possible. Anyways, rules are simple. Only games I've played, only one boss per franchise, and the less relevant the better. Let's get started, shall we? Number 11. Thardus, Metroid Prime. Thardus is the one boss I could see being contested as a throwaway boss, as it is the main boss of Phendrana Drifts and gives you the spider ball, which, yeah, that's kind of the reason why I'm putting it at number 11, but I'm still sticking to my guns here. It's not as if Prime 1 was a stranger to giving you upgrades without a battle included, and this boss isn't even really at the end of Phendrana, it's more at the halfway point of the area, if anything. On top of that, sure, Prime 1 doesn't have the most direct narrative, a lot of it's done through subtext and reading the pirate logs and other lore tablets, but looking at what happens in the story and their impact on the world, the Parasite Queen broke free on the Orpheon, and her falling to her death into the reactor is what caused the Orpheon to wreck and crash, leading to most of the game's events. Flagra is a giant plant poisoning the Chozo ruins that you have to deal with so it stops being poisonous. The Omega Pirate is the ultimate weapon utilizing Phazon created by the space pirates known as Subject Upsilon. Ridley is Ridley, he needs no introduction. And Metroid Prime is the boss that the game is named after, but Thardus? He's just a big pile of spicy rocks. But he's still a cool fight, and I mean, it's a giant rock monster using telekinetic powers, calling down lightning, shooting out ice spikes, and rolling into you. The only reason I hesitate to call the boss a throwaway is that it's technically the main boss of Phendrana, but really, you could have replaced it with a larger than average Sheegoth and most people probably wouldn't have batted an eye, though I'm still glad we get to fight this giant rock monster. Number 10. Heavy Thautomaton. When going to perform the ritual in order to buy the world some time, we get jumped by a giant thaw machine because we haven't had a boss fight since we reclaimed the Sand Fortress and it's a bit too early to kill Diaz or General Hugo. So this guy's here to fill that boss gap. The fight is pretty simple. The boss only goes for physical attacks or summons his bits on his own, but those bits provide buffs to the big machine. The boss is tanky as well, so you need to figure out how to use the grid to combo all the enemies together for as long of a chain as you can do to get in the big damage numbers, so the fight will have you using your moves to manipulate the battle positioning of enemies more than just the big damage attacks. The strongest aspect of Radiant Historia is the narrative, so it's a bit silly to have a fight with zero story relevance in the midst of this big plot arc going on where everything's about to come to a head, but at the exact same time, I am glad that this fight exists because there's a sizable drought between bosses, and while this fight serves zero purpose in the narrative and is forgotten about as soon as it's dead, I'm always down for a simple but fun boss fight, and this game does have a fun enough combat system. Number 9. Demi-Grindel Gadam, Trails Through Daybreak 2. What can I say about Trails Through Daybreak 2? It is certainly a story in the Trails series. Anyways, after getting the papers from the Hidden Beck base, you're able to get past the Sith Guard to make your way down to the Undercity where you get mobbed by Rakghouls. Wait, wrong game. But seriously, they could have just had you fight the Demi-Grindels and no one would have batted an eye since they already had their own music and more or less served as the boss fight of the chapter, but that would have been a bit of a weird way to end off the chapter, so they sent us this big monster with a lot of HP for you to wail on. In this case, Gadam is a punching bag with a cool design, and honestly, you could have put anything down here, even those praying mantis monster dudes, and it would have probably worked. But I'm glad that we got a actual chapter boss because that would have been pretty lame. This fight is super easy, but he has enough HP that you'll need to make use of the different game mechanics like boosting, S-breaks, and chain striking if you want to take this boss down in a somewhat timely manner, and it can be really fun and satisfying to pull off all your different tricks. Plus, the fight is backed up by the song Believing Heart, which is an amazing boss theme that I've used in plenty of my videos. You know, this one. Daybreak 2 might be 80% filler, and this boss is no exception, but sometimes a fun playground to let loose all your skills against can be fun, and sometimes that's all you need. Plus, if nothing else, this game was a pretty notable step forward in terms of the gameplay refinements, so I gotta give it credit for that. Number 8, Enforcer, Armored Core 6. I wonder if Enforcer was originally meant to be a boss that closed out an act, because it's oddly unique compared to its contemporaries. Not really a major opponent in the story like Iceworm or Ibis was, and it doesn't even cap off a climactic level like Juggernaut did. I mean, you're just kind of descending down into a pit. It's just a fight with a unique design, but it's got a good unique design and a fun moveset to deal with, and something that deserves more credit than it gets. I feel like it kind of gets overshadowed by the bosses it's surrounded by. Plus, it's Armored Core 6. Basically every boss in this game is cool, but not all of them are treated equally in the story, and I feel like this one could have had a bigger role and I would have been okay with that. Number 7, Nizbel II, Chrono Trigger. The second boss fight with Nizbel is the only mandatory boss in Chrono Trigger that feels like it comes kind of out of nowhere, but it's pretty funny. Bro is just flexing when you enter the room and tells you that Azala is just passed, but doesn't attack you until you try to head upstairs. Honestly, I think it's a pretty good joke. Anyways, the fight has this mechanic where Nizbel is going to be too hard to really bring down with your regular attacks, and he boosts his defenses higher and higher every time he's hit by an attack. However, he's a dinosaur, and in this game, that means that his defenses will fall lower if he gets hit by an electrical shock. But unlike other dinosaurs that get stunned, he's merely weakened for a short moment, and you're going to need to juggle between shocking him and hitting him hard, because you don't want to keep shocking him too much, since getting shocked starts a countdown, and once enough time passes, he'll perform an electrical discharge, and it gets stronger the more his defenses have been lowered, and after the discharge is performed, his defenses reset back to their neutral levels. It leads to the fight being a fun little juggling act with you fully utilizing the moveset of Chrono, Ayla, and whomever your third party member is to score a victory. But when the fight ends, Nizbel dies and the game doesn't even acknowledge it. It's a funny case where he is a henchman for the D-plot villain, but he is technically the first recurring bad guy we take out in the game, so it's simultaneously a small victory and also completely pointless. Number 6, Lavardragar. Okay, I know I said one boss per franchise, but until they confirm that Kreia is the Grand Master, this game is separate from the rest of the Trail series as far as I'm concerned. Anyways, with that being said, this game actually has a really good boss roster, so I should probably do a boss ranking on it at some point. But one of the most unexpected opponents is the Angry Elevator. It's not a major roadblock for the player or something built up as a serious threat, it's literally an elevator you ride up the tower when you're going on your way to confront Zex. But then you have to wall ride up the second half of the elevator, it decides it's going to come to life and attack you. It's a simple fight of hit the red glowy spot, but it's frantic and fast paced, making for an effective encounter that leaves me wondering, why is the elevator so angry? It's not implied to be guarding the place, and the only dialogue we get is Noi saying, "Look out from below!" And then the fight happens, and as soon as it's defeated, there's zero mention of the boss. It's goofy, it's weird, I kinda love it, and it's just fast-paced and frantic and fun in the same way that a Sonic boss can be fun. Yeah, I should definitely make a boss ranking on this game someday. Number 5, Grad, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. When heading off to go find where the kidnapped children are being held, we get to a suspiciously boss arena-shaped room, and then all of a sudden, it's a boss fight. What a surprise. The Grad is just a random large robot that becomes an elite enemy after this mission is over, and it's the only time a level boss feels like it was just tossed in because they needed a boss fight to cap things off, which is even more odd when you consider that one of the later missions doesn't actually have a boss fight to cap things off, so I don't know, they probably could have gotten away with not having a boss fight here. Anyways, they beefed up the big robot enemy and reused Rules of Nature as a boss theme, and you know what? It's still pretty fucking awesome because Metal Gear Rising is a fun game, and having a boss willing to just breakdance on you is hilarious. On top of that, with the boss being a robot and not a person, it means you can perform a ton of dismemberment to alter the boss's moveset as the fight goes on, and it's not just as a finisher for the boss fight. The boss is completely extraneous, but it's still a pretty fun time, and that's inside a fun game, which is more than enough for me. Though it is odd how they had to throw together a random boss here, but then the previous level had 3 different boss fights in it. Number 4, X-Metal, Ys 8, Lacrimosa of Dana. Hey look, it's my favorite video game. I was wondering when that was going to show up on here. Anyways, after Donna meets up with and joins the main party, you're tasked with ascending up Baja Tower, and this is a dungeon that has 2 bosses in it. With the first one being the completely random fight against the Axe Metal. The only reason you fight it is because it's right in front of a treasure chest that holds a new traversal upgrade. There's no cutscene, there's no dialogue surrounding the fight, it just happens. In terms of design, X-Metal is simply a floating suit of armor with a club, and he's not afraid to swing it around. But the boss has a little bit more to him than you may initially think. He has his standard swings of his giant club, a little homing ball he can fire off at you, and the ability to spin right round baby right round, but he's also got the ability to slam the club into the ground hard enough to send out a vertical shockwave. And despite him being a mini-boss with only a single health bar, he's actually got a second phase where at half health he can fire off ice lasers at you, and he gains a new attack where he can dash into you and tackle you before hitting you with his club again. It's a really fun time, and I'm glad that he has a completely unique moveset. It's a complete throwaway mini-boss, but I think that the quality in Ys 8, especially with the boss fights, is just so much higher than any prior game in the series that even these random fights can be a ton of fun, and this guy is no exception. Number 3, Creation. Clair Obscure, Expedition 33. Oh boy, here I go talking about Expedition 33 again. You'd think I'd like this game or something. Anyways, when actually looking at the boss roster in Expedition 33, there's not really any filler bosses in the main path. Even something like the Duelist still plays a minor role in the plot and the lore of the area. But there is one fight, and one exception, that oddly enough is the game's penultimate boss fight. Right before you can do battle with Renoir to beat the game, you're required to face off against this horse-like monster formed from petrified corpses, called the Creation, and his 2 aberrations assisting him in combat. Story-wise, it's nothing more than a monster stopping you from reaching Renoir, and it being an especially powerful Nevron. But when we get into gameplay mechanics, it's actually fantastic. The fight starts with the boss putting the reversal status on your teammates, getting rid of your ability to heal, while the aberrations will focus on lowering your maximum HP with the Blight status. As is RPG 101, the first step is always going to be taking out the ads. He honestly is pretty straightforward in his first phase, where he just goes for a bunch of physical attacks. There's not too much to the fight at this point. However, when he drops below half health, he ascends into the sky with 3 floating orbs above his body. Normally the solution to these is to shoot them, and it kind of is here, because the void orbs will blow up and cause a fair bit of damage, but shooting them will also heal your party members. Except since you have the inverted status applied, it ends up causing you to lose HP for every hit, so unless you find a way to cure the status, or even better, take out the boss before all the orbs blow up, you're gonna need to, well, be careful here. Now, being a boss in Act 3, you can completely steamroll him with overpowered builds after the damage cap has been broken. But some of us actually want to play the game, and I appreciate how intricate the fight is despite being just a monster roadblocking you from the final boss fight. And the design is also really cool and really spooky looking. Number 2, Dragon X, Phantasy Star Online 2. From a boss that's an amalgamation of wreckage and corpses to a dragon that makes anime callouts whenever it attacks you, yeah, we got a bit of whiplash going on here. You'd think, being one of the few bosses capable of intelligent thought and speech, that it'd play some key role in the story of Episode 2, kinda like Corella did in Episode 1, but no. The only reason this boss is required is because you have to clear the Dragon Shrine to see all the mandatory cutscenes here. Otherwise, you could have just skipped the fight. It's only required because it just so happens to be here and in the way. Which makes it all the more surprising because this is one of the most mechanically deep bosses in the Photoner saga. With the boss having multiple combat forms, it swaps between with dramatic callouts that will change how its AI acts, and what attacks it utilizes in the first phase, before phase 2 allows the moveset to start chaining the attacks from different forms together. They put so much personality into this moveset in the voice lines as well, and this boss has no relevance to the plot, and only has its 3-ish minutes of screen time, but he's still one of the best bosses in the game because he remembers it's important to be fun, and he beats out the Creation because I prefer action RPGs over turn-based ever so slightly, and honestly, you can make some arguments that the Creation is kind of not a throwaway because it was something made by Renoir to stop you. Well, this guy's just here. But there is one more boss that does the idea of a completely unnecessary but awesome fight even better. Number 1, Dragon Slayer armor, Dark Souls 3. Why is this armor with an odd resemblance to Ornstein here? No idea. Why is it fighting you? Some moths decided to possess it or some shit. Why does it have one of the best movesets in the entire Dark Souls trilogy? Once again, no idea. Why is the music awesome? Well, it's Dark Souls 3, that's kind of a given. Everything about this fight feels weighty, but still moving with the fluidity of Dark Souls 3 bosses and, like, what they're known for. This boss has always been something of a sleeper hit in my eyes, where he honestly would be one of the best bosses in many other games, and especially action RPGs, but because he's in a game with such a stacked boss roster as Dark Souls 3, he rarely breaks people's top 5, and the only person I've seen him give him any due is Alex from Cytonox. Shout out to him. There's no reason for this boss to be here other than to have a boss fight. Even his bonfire's completely pointless because there's another one 15 feet behind him. But damn it, it's still cool nonetheless. Everything about the moveset feels right. The music is a fantastic track. Yes, I even like the Phase 2 version, though that seems to be a bit of a controversial take. The arena has a little bit of pizzazz instead of being a flat, circular room. And he's the only boss I've seen that actively tries to fake the player out by feigning a stagger, and in my case looking like he was going into his death animation but surprising me with one last slam when he was at 1 HP. I wouldn't be surprised if earlier in development this fight was meant to play more of a pivotal role, much like Pontiff Slavin was planned to be Dark Souls 3's final boss, but for some reason or another they couldn't make it work. But instead of leaving him as cut content, they decided to throw him in a random in-game boss fight, and you know what? I'm glad they did, because the fight is completely pointless, but it's some of the most fun I've had in a video game. And that's going to do it for this video. It's been a while since I had a random countdown video, but I had the idea to make this one for a while now, and I'm glad I finally did. What's your favorite boss fight that could have been cut from a game, but you're glad wasn't? Comment down below, I guess. Anyways, that's all I've got for this video. If you'd like to see more content of varying quality, consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you on the next video. Until then, take care.